is to give a description of the nature of minorities.
Yeah.
To explain how minorities are oppressed, how they are starved of access to the media and all those things. But the problem is that those things are not issues in today's debate. No one here argues that minorities are not oppressed or all those things. But we are saying that due to the intrinsic political ignorances that exist in the political climate, this policy does not make sense. And due to very principled intentions that we have, this policy doesn't make sense. So the only thing that, like Judy says in his speech, new matter is, well, a state sovereignty is premised on how other states view it. You say this isn't necessarily true, right? Because like states have their independence and states do not necessarily care about like what the general perception is. And then assuming like that argument is true, that states independence is premised on international organizations. Why is it that we have states pulling out of those international organizations? Why is it that when a state pulls out of any international organization, we do not see them as lesser of the states that they are? Secondly, we say like why is it that Israel still like has like Palestinian land, right? Even when the international community has outrightly said that land does not belong to them. So we think that international organizations do not even have enforcement authority. So to even suggest that like they have the power to define who is a state and who is not a state is very, very absurd. That is the only like new material we get from closing government. Other things that they say are mostly what like comes from OG and I'll be reporting them. So then on the bench they want this thing that states sometimes have to be fought, states have to be attacked in many instances, and that means that states have incentives to tag their enemies as people who are extremists, right? That is the argument that comes from these guys. 6. We say number 1 that their policy does not change anything because in the vast majority of instances, those states who fight opposition are rogue states. So even if the UN decides to make the determination that those groups are not extremist groups, it is not going to stop those groups from being fought. Because they're talking about Russia, they're talking about China. Those states will not respect international conventions. Even the United States of America it's not a treaty to the Geneva Convention. So the US cannot even be tried for war crimes. So we don't think that the policy has any substantial utility because those states are rogue states and non-conformist states. Right? We say then, secondly, we think like even when sanctions are given to these states, it doesn't really stop them from doing what they want to do. Then they say, well, everyone agrees that ISIS is bad. So like the argument that the reason why they say like we should use the international community is because they believe that on the international level there's a great deal of objectivity, right? Because many bodies are engaging. We think so. The argument is that this cause exists on the international level because there's objectivity. Why does this not stand? Because we tell you that in many instances countries have permanent ideological stance in different instances. So Nigeria, like Russia, like China, they have their permanent ideological stance. So there's no room for discourse. It's not going to be what you say versus what I say. It happens to the debate community where we have IMSU and UNICA, where even IMSU people don't care about the sense that UNICA debaters make. But there's only there's a schism. So nobody wants to hear what this other person has to say, but who says it? Yeah. That means that we cannot have that objective engagement that happens. Second thing, we think that rivalry and competition exist among states. That means that just because it is the US that's proposing this policy, Russia will not necessarily want to buy into that policy, or China. So we think that competition and rivalry makes it possible for objective determinations to be made in those societies. Now, we also explained to you, like Percy in his speech told you, that when the international organizations make these kinds of decisions, it is very damaging, because in many instances we have sects who are legitimate extremists in particular states, but not legitimate extremists in other states. Like the Shiites, for instance, the Shiite sect of Muslims can be considered to be like extremists in particular states, and legitimately so, maybe because they are violent, but in other states they are not. When the international organizations make those determinations, then it means that every single Shiite in every single state is going to be affected. Right. So we think that is something that is a huge problem. Then we explain to you how, like, before I go to my explanation, let me go to Kumbi. Yeah.
Now,
since China opened up its borders for trade, it has actually increased in liberalization of human rights, showing that the threat of economic sanctions actually forces states to do this. Yeah. Also, do you agree to opening the United Nations is not interfering and mediating in Syria, in Afghanistan, and in Nigeria?
The UN is finding it difficult. See, the point is that the UN is finding it difficult to intervene in Syria because China and Russia are opposing it. So we don't think that consensus can exist in that particular point. The UN cannot listen. The UN cannot intervene like unilaterally because they have like the members of the Security Council that have like veto power, not supporting those kinds of things. So we don't think that is something that really makes sense. Now, what do we explain to you from closing? I'll start with the pragmatics, and because this debate is an international relations debate, pragmatics are very, very crucial in today's debate. We say number one, it is impossible to have this consensus speech, and this is something that Zubi doesn't engage with. We say that different international organizations have different ideologies. So the AU has a different ideology from the EU, and they have a different ideology from NATO. Why is this important? Because to the extent where the AU says this group is an extremist, and the EU says this group is not an extremist, whose views are going to prevail over the other group? Because sometimes the African Union, for instance, might be more conservative, right? So why is this important? Because in the European zones, right, the rights of homosexuals to do whatever they want to do is respected, but in Africa that is not respected. That clearly shows that we cannot have that universality of rights. So the problem is that these guys do not respond to as to whose views are going to stand over the views of other people, because the motion just says international organizations. Then we tell you how blocks have different caucuses existing, and that is a big problem. But then our main extension about political correctness. We explain to you how the rise of political correctness in the world today is a big problem because we are becoming increasingly fragile. That means we are scared to offend particular groups. That means that we want to always please people. That means that in liberal spaces, it is always very difficult to tag groups as being extremists because we're always scared of offending their sensibilities in those particular instances. The rise of political correctness means that you can never ever make any decision at the top to frame particular groups as extremists, because there's always the fear that other groups within those particular spaces are going to be affected. We think that the rise of political correctness means that this cannot be made. This determination cannot be made. Also, we explain to you about the need for respect for democratic mandate. If you do not respect the democratic mandate of people, there's going to be mob justice, where people are going to feel that they are under siege and they are threatened and they want to attack the state because they believe that the state doesn't represent their views. Closing opposition clearly wins today's debate.
Excellent.